think that's gonna work. Okay. How are you? Let's leave a little plastic here. Zazoo Plazz, my friend here. It's it's about 7. It's almost 8 o'clock on Monday morning. November. It's not. Oh yeah, November 10th. November 10th. We'll see. I did a little test of this microphone here, and I think it works really well. We'll see. And then I did it without it, and I really noticed the difference. So the first time I got these, I didn't charge up the little receiver that goes in your phone. So that's why it didn't, it works just as well on the laptop as the phone as long as you have the right thing. So we're getting there, folks. We're getting there. I get a good report today. She went to work. I can speak freely now. Oh, we got a good one today. It's the feast of the dedication of the Lateran Basilica in Rome. So I guess that's the big church, the building, the church. I hope this works. Oh well, if it doesn't work, whatever. Then we'll know for next time. I'm just gonna go right ahead. I think it's gonna work pretty well. Seems to be working. Okay. Sit on my I gotta do laundry. This is like my last pair of clean jeans. Socks. I'll get pink socks on today. Pink socks to match my shirt. And I gotta go to Savers and I gotta get more. I need some new clothes. Just to refresh. I have a few things. And I have a coupon. And you gotta use the coupons by the end of the year. When you drop stuff off, they give you a coupon. And I got like 15 of them. And then they always email me coupons. So, so I'm gonna go this week. And I'm figuring it out. The times to go, throw in a load of laundry after I do my Zazoo report. Then I have my paleo hot chocolate snack with the rice cake with the cashew butter and dried cranberries. And then after that, I'll go throw in the laundry, and then I'll post my report while the laundry is washing. Or, take a walk. And then I'll come back and post it. I'll figure it out. So, so I'm going to spout off a little today. Oh, first of all, the astrological. Yeah, we're in Scorpio, moon's in Cancer. There's a lot of water. There's a lot of emotion going on right now. So we've got, on the 16th, November 16th to the 18th, there's going to be an exact water trine, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, between Jupiter, and then we'll have the sun at 25 degrees. Sun and Saturn conjunct Neptune retrograde in Pisces. They're there now, but they're not. It's not an exact trine, I guess. Which a trine is favorable. It's flow, but sometimes I have a natal grand water trine. It makes you more creative, more intuitive, empathic, all the watery stuff. Feelings and comes easily, emotions. But if you don't put it towards something, concrete, you can get a little complacent. I was told that. My mom sent me to an astrologer when I was like 22, 23. Very prominent astrologer. He founded the Astrological Society of Connecticut. My mother used to listen to this guy because she was an amateur astrologer. She was up on all that. That was her thing. She would devour anything to do with astrology, and she had a good mind for it. She had a mind for details. My thinking is more all over the place. I kind of get the broad brush strokes, I don't have the patience, and I've since realized that she knew that I didn't. That I was more of I'm more of a clairsentient kind of person. She didn't have that. She didn't have a lot of water. My mom was more, it was the facts that she could help people, but her way was just knowing things. Like, she knew what she knew, and she had a great capacity to remember all these things, all the little facts, and she'd look at her little tables, because they didn't have a lot of stuff online back then when she was doing it. So but she knew stuff. Like, once she learned it, she learned it. She wouldn't forget. I know, I grew up with this woman. She didn't forget anything. Not one damn thing. If I said something to her, or, one year, if I did anything, she would hold that. She would remember that my entire life. You understand what I had to deal with, folks? Okay, the fact that I got, and my human design, if you follow design, human design, my type, my strategy, or, the type, I'm a 3-5, which means I'm a martyr heretic. A 3-5 is meant to come and make mistakes and find out all the way things don't work. And this is me, right? My mother's she was a 1-3. So her thing was to research and investigate. She was an investigative martyr, and I was a martyr heretic. So my thing was to make mistakes and talk about all the ways things don't work. Her way was to know everything, and then go and tell people, to help people, to be the martyr, right? So here I am. I'm a perfect foil for everything that she stood for. I think she looked at raising me as her great sacrifice, because I was probably everything that she didn't want to be. And here I was going, no wonder when I released my book telling all of this stuff, the poor woman, it was too much. She died the year after I published my book. Anyway, do with that what you will. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah. So, I go on. So that's the astrological broad brush strokes. We've got Mercury retrograde in Sag this week, for 3 weeks. And then we have Mars in Sag. So we got some Sag energy there. So that's something. Uranus, Pluto, and Aquarius. Same thing. Taurus and Aquarius. Yeah. So, I'm doing a lot of good stuff on my social media page, because there's nothing out there that I'm curious about. Everything, I'm unfollowing everything and everybody, because it's like, oh God, it's boring. I don't care about anything anymore. Sports, celebrities, blah, blah, blah. If I want to look something up about a song or something I'm working on, I'll look it up. But, I'm focusing my efforts on things that I deliberately want to learn, rather than the stuff that gets fed. It's drivel. It's just nobody's got, I like my own stuff. I want to put stuff out there that I am curious about, that I would like to know. If I were somebody like me, I'm interested in lots of things, but not this drivel it's consumer, it's a world of consuming. You got to create, to be in a place of creation rather than consuming, and that's, I think, one of the problems with social media. Everybody's like, oh yeah, speak the truth. But, I want to inform, I want to educate, I want to help make people's lives better. Not just add to the mix of more drivel. It's distasteful. It really is. Okay, Zazoo, that's enough. All right. I had to get that off my chest. I'm not wasting my time watching people, posing with fans and influencers, people. What do? Do you write? What wisdom do you have? It's just the same old crap. You're gonna show us, movies that people used to watch. What new stuff do you have to contribute that'll make people's lives better? Not just look at me, I'm here at this thing. All right, that's enough. I'm done. I'm done with that. So yeah, my kids are my boys. I gotta just share a couple of little tidbits about them this week. So I said that my youngest son, I didn't hear from him. Last week was my birthday. Last Sunday was my birthday week, and I saw my oldest son, and his dad. They came over, but I didn't hear from my youngest son. And I said, by a couple days into the week last week, I said, I'm starting to get a little worried. One morning I woke up, and I usually do a tarot spread to check on everybody, to see how everybody's doing, and it's usually pretty accurate. And I drew a couple cards from him, and I'm like, should I text him? I don't want to interfere, but I'm getting vibes here. So then I'm working out, and I get toward the end of my workout. I was stretching, and I get this. My phone rings. So I go, and it's him. He says, "Hi." He's in his truck driving home to the country out by Yukon from his girlfriend's house in central Connecticut, middle part of the state. I said, "Who is this?" I don't recognize the voice. It's been a while, and I just teasing. He said, "Okay, all right, I guess I'm sorry I missed your birthday, Mom." But then I didn't know. Apparently, poor kid was sick. He had some kind of nasty infection or bug or something flat in his back. On my birthday and a couple days after, he was knocked out, just sleeping, and so then I felt bad for yanking his chain. I said, "Okay, I'll let it go. You're forgiven." So, and then I ended up talking to him. He ended up just having to sort of vent about some things that he saw going on in the world. I won't be too specific, but some things. Mainly he's frustrated because he has his forestry degree, just graduated, and he's doing some work, but he's in the lab processing like soil samples. He goes outside a little bit. He does some work with the forestry crew and he gets samples, but he's like, "Mom, I don't want to be in a lab." He's like, "I want to be outside." He said, I'd like to have like a base of operations, then I can go outside and do my thing. So he's very frustrated about that. He was hoping that he could find a job like with the parks or one of those. He could. There are budget constraints. Even before the government shutdown here in the U.S., they were eliminating a lot of the jobs that he had planned on going for when he got his forestry degree, an environmental agriculture school. So he's a kid who's got to be outside. So I let him rant, and I always feel the need to do something, but this time I shut my mouth and I just let him talk. And I asked questions, because I remember when I was in getting out of college, how passionate I was, about what I was doing. And I was in investments and I was passionate about computers and, making things run more efficiently, especially in, my work in, the, investment areas, insurance companies. I would go in there and, wherever I was doing some consulting work. I was with companies, for a little while, but I would move on if I wasn't allowed to, be creative. And if I didn't see that there was a path forward, I would leave and I'd go somewhere else. And that's what my kids are doing. My oldest son, he's he's the same kind of like I was. He's into computers. He's restless. You know, he was even more restless than I was, because he has more options, and he's, you know, working with AI and all these things. But, you know, he's doing it within the context of his work, you know, and he's taking training and all this stuff. So he's doing something about it, which is good. You know, these guys, they're you know, they're in a different world than I was, but there's the same kind of feeling, you know, there's a frustration, I'm a Gen Xer, they're a Gen Z, but we both, you know, they feel the same kind of pain that we felt, except they should have more opportunities, you know, in this world. So many more things. The technology is worlds beyond what we had. We were building it. I mean, you know, that's a whole different video. But suffice to say, I let him vent, and then you know, toward the end of the call, I said, you know, what I realized was what he needs to do is he can't change the whole world. I can't change the world. What he can do is change his attitude and raise his energy. So I suggested, you know, some kind of echinacea teas when you feel like you're, you know, because he does like tea. And when you feel yourself kind of getting a little run down, you know, have some of this stuff and have some vitamin C. Keep your immune system strong throughout the winter, and you know, and then he went on his way, and I went on my way, and I thought, you know, that's how I can help, by helping my kids to get through, you know, as best they can, by making themselves as you know, taking personal responsibility. That's what we can do. We can raise our energy, and when we get to that higher place, the world will look different. Things will run more easily in our lives. It's simply a change of attitude and latitude. Not physically, literally, but, you know, inhabit a higher plane, and the world is full of opportunities that you didn't see when you were down in here, right? So, and you know, you're exposed to new, you know, opportunities when you raise your vibration, right? So, and I realized this week that's what I can do for my kids, is to encourage them to do that, you know, to be in environments where they feel charged, where they feel like they can accomplish something that they're passionate about, you know, that they can stay out of the fray a little bit more, rather than just venting, because that gives more of the same, right? So I have an awareness of energy in ways that my mom didn't have, you know, and that's good, because then I can deal with this new generation in a way that she probably couldn't. So that's interesting. I was going to talk about all this stuff, but yeah. So today's the readings. So I guess it's this. You know, you'd say, who cares about the church in Rome? Whatever. It's a building, right? It's a church. It's been torn. It's fallen down. They built it back up. It's a building, right? But okay. So it seems to me that I was thinking about Teddy Roosevelt today, and I posted on my Facebook page if you want to go see. He was the conservation president. A few years back, 2012, we took the Cub Scout, my boys' Cub Scout troop. They took a bus trip to the Museum of Natural History. We went with them. It was fun. They were 9 and 11. And I found a picture of them and their dad, you know, sitting on the statue. There used to be a statue of Teddy Roosevelt on a horse, just like in the Night at the Museum movies, right, with Ben Stiller. And on either side of him there was like a Native American guide, and then sort of like an African, someone with African. I guess from Africa or some. There were two guides, and there are different perspectives on that online. Some people think it's, you know, that they were gun bearers. that they were guides, but and he was, and he was open to meeting, diverse people, all kinds of people. He went out and he explored, and he found comfort in nature. With all the trials and health problems and things that he went through, he was a Scorpio. He was the rough riders, right? He was tough. A weaker soul might not have, gone through everything that he did, but he used to heal and, find comfort by going outside in nature, So what they did was, I guess, back in 2021, after I took a picture. The kids were like, "Oh, take our picture with the statue of Teddy Roosevelt." So I went, I went across the street to the park, and I took several pictures because, and I had my new phone, so it was with my phone. But, cabs and all kinds of traffic kept going by and blocking the guys. So I finally got a clear shot, of them sitting there. And it was a good picture. And then, come to find out, I did not know this because we hadn't been back. 2021, they voted to get rid of the statue because they felt that it was discriminatory, toward certain ethnic groups, and that it was, the white, because he was white and he was on a horse, and just because he was higher up that didn't mean anything. From my point of view, it was more about Teddy Roosevelt himself. It was to honor him and what he did for, natural resources in our country. And I think that, everyone is so hyper, focused on those things these days that they miss the point, right? They didn't go, if you don't go higher, and I understand that people, and of course they make valid points, and it's worth emphasizing that there is this ideal that we can strive for, which is to respect humans as well as wildlife, and peace and harmony. So there's that is what we should be striving for as as citizens of the world. That's what I think. So I'm not on any side. I just thought it was interesting that 2022 they took the statue down and they stuck it somewhere. I think at the Teddy Roosevelt Museum, and I don't think they know what they're going to do with it. But it just looks so bare without the entrance now, without the statue. And I love the movie, and how Robin Williams, that was his last the last movie released before he died. His last lines were to Ben Stiller, as Teddy Roosevelt. He said, put a smile on your face. He said, it's dawn. The dawn is coming, and then he went back to being frozen, to being the statue again. But I thought that was so interesting, and it fits, it fits with today. So it's the reading, the gospel, where Jesus throws out the merchants and the money changers from the temple, right? So, and that's relevant to the Feast of the Basilica. So, in other words, what's your sacred place? It doesn't have to be a building, right? And the bottom line is, each one of us is a temple, a sacred place, right? For God, for, Christ light to anchor in on earth. So what are you filling that with? What is getting in the way of you channeling, messages from divine, right? So Ezekiel, so I guess, a lot of the if you read about Atlantis, they built temples for everything, all kinds of nature, everything, you know, the sea, the land, everything, the sun, the moon, everything had a temple. So it says the angel Ezekiel led him to the temple where water was flowing from the south down to the east to refresh the sea, which was salt water, with fruit. So wherever this river was running, there would be on the banks, you know, fish. There would be fish in the river, fruit trees blooming all the time, producing fruit. So it's a fruitful place, right? And the water is constantly running through, right? So then we said, it says in Psalm 46, the waters of the river gladden the city of God, the holy dwelling of the Most High. So, yeah. And it says about this stream, God will help it, protect it at the break of dawn. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. God is our refuge and strength. Just like Teddy Roosevelt, right? Would go out in nature, and that was his refuge. His strength was found in nature. All right? And it's protected by God. You know, this river, this land. So then Paul, first letter to Corinthians, it says, you are God's building. Paul said he laid the foundation which was, Jesus, right? And he said, be careful how you build upon God's foundation, which is, this Christ light. So I think that fits. In other words, what do you fill your spirit in this body? It should be pure, right? You should be focused on, the moment, the signals that you're getting from God in the moment. But if you're filling it with this clamoring noise and greed and consumerism, you're distracted, right? And it's unholy. So, yeah, get to it, Zazoo. It's getting late. All right. Okay. Second, John 2. And so that's second chapter of John. So Jesus says he drives the seller. He goes to Jerusalem, to the temple, and he sees all these merchants there selling oxen, which is Taurus, sheep, Aries, and doves. I don't know what that is. Gemini, air sign, maybe? So he says, so he gets really mad at them. He flips the tables. It's one of the few times that we see Jesus really getting mad. He's angry. And he throws them out. He kicks them out. He gets them out of there. He really, and he said, so the disciples, his apostles, remembered how the scripture said, zeal for your house will consume me. So he's really, passionate about this, and he does something about it, right? But it's not literal. It's symbolic, because he says the Jews asked him for a sign, as to why he was doing this, and he said, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll raise it up. He wasn't talking about the actual building, right? They're like, well, it's this temple has been in building for 46 years. No, not that temple. He was talking about himself, right? So they remembered that, his apostles, and then he said, oh, that's what he meant, right? After he rose. So, in other words, we can't serve God and the material world. You have to you have to set your priorities, right? And your focus, because what you focus on is what you're going to get. So that's why I was telling my kid, if he focuses just on, and making himself, keeping himself at a self-improvement, making himself, and then he was going on about how he's worried about his chickens and the chickens, what to do with the chickens in the winter. You got to keep them warm. They kind of stop laying eggs, which I never knew that chickens stop laying eggs in the winter, but I guess it's a thing. You got to keep them warm, you know. He's like, should I get an incubator? I don't know. And he's like, maybe we should just, you know, put traffic cones over their heads and like, you know. And I said, no, don't kill the chicken. And then he's like, oh, there's a rooster next door. Maybe they can get some chicks. Bring the hens over there, and then they'll have a few chicks. I don't know. Stay tuned. We don't know what's going to happen with the chickens. The cat might get them before they make up their mind. Anyway, so yeah, destroy the temple. Okay. So the song, getting to the song finally, and then, you know, it occurred to me. I was thinking river, and then I was thinking River of Dreams. And I have the CD. Well, it's up at the house. But that was mine. I bought it in 1993, if you're listening. That was my CD. I brought that into the marriage. And that was a good one, too. River of Dreams. It was his last studio album, his 12th and final. And this, No Man's Land, was the second single released in February of '94. Got to number 18 on the Billboard Rock Tracks, album rock. Yeah, so, and this, you know, he just came out with his documentary this year in July. Billy Joel is, and so it goes. But if you don't subscribe to like HBO Max, you can't watch it, and I don't, so I don't know how I'm going to see it, because you have to subscribe to the streaming channel, and what if you just want to watch the movie? I don't know how you can do that, but yeah, I don't do the streaming thing. And it's kind of ironic because this whole song has to do with getting cable now in Zombietown, and then now his documentary is it's in Zombietown. So, all right. So this song he wrote and he produced it, and it's about the negative aspects of, you know, the growth of suburbia, negative aspects, environmental and social aspects. And this is, here goes my French. It's more relevant today than ever. I mean, this. Who remembers where it all began? It reminds me of, you know, when. Way back, even, you know, around my area here, I remember when in the early 90s, when stuff was just going up, you know, it was just, there was this whole area near me where the mall is now, but it was very open, you know. There was just red, like, rocks, and, you know, and they just blasted through, and they built the whole mall area near us. And now there's hardly any stores left. I mean, the mall itself is deserted. So it's kind of like we've come full circle, you know. And I guess he's probably talking here about his, you know, Long Island where he was. But, you know, throughout the U.S., they're just tearing down, you know, putting up parking lots. He said, miles and miles of parking space, and no manufacturing, you know, no industry, just parking. You know, building condos. And they used to, you know, tearing down historic buildings. You know, and the children, the empty eyes of children, they're so bored, they're zombies, right? Because there's nothing real, there's nothing, you know, they're taking down history that the kids used to get excited about. You know, libraries where they can go and read books, which is not the same as being online, right? These are the things that I used to get excited about as a kid. Going places that had history, you know, learning about things, right? That's what gets you excited. The natural world, right? Going for a hike and seeing things growing outside, right? This is what our kids need. Creativity, right? So, anyway, so I looked up No Man's Land. I said, okay, well, a few more things before that. The song. He actually performed this song August 30th, 1993, the premiere episode of David Letterman. He played this song. It was the first song played on David Letterman's show. And then in 2017, there was this show, TV series, Arrow. It's like the Green Arrow, the superhero. They showed him singing the song in concert August 4th, 2015 in Nassau Coliseum. It was in that series. So, and in 2018 he recalled that the song had his best lyrics, biblical imagery skewed by consumerism. So I thought that was interesting. Billy Joel's the greatest. I mean, I just love all his music. All of it. I've seen him several times, and that's good. Okay, anyway. So, I was curious. So I looked up No Man's Land and the term itself. And it says it's the land between, like in World War I, when you have two armies, they're in trenches. There's that's the strip in between of land where nobody can claim. It's torn up, it's ugly, it's a battleground, right? It's just dead, barren, right? And it's a hopeless, grim kind of place. It's confusing. It's neither here nor there, right? It's in the middle, kind of like purgatory, right? It's very unclear. Neither good nor bad. It's neutral, right? And it's not fit for human habitation. So it's kind of like, if you don't. That's what happens if you allow the temple, that is your body, to be, corrupted by this kind of activity, right? You become a no man's land where you don't stand for anything, right? You don't get passionate about anything. It's just bleh, right? And that's more dangerous than when. At least if you're on if you take a stand for the sanctity, for purity, for authenticity, for integrity, right? Not that you have to be, that this is better than that, but your personal truth, right? Not that this side is good and they're bad and I'm right. No. What is right for you in this moment, right? That's where you have to build your temple, your building, That's your church. And it changes, right? Because God doesn't stay the same. So it's constantly, moving and growing as you go along through life. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Get off my high horse, Teddy. Who's on his high horse? Okay, Zazoo, get off your high horse. I do tend to gallop off on my high horse sometimes. But anyway, so I'm going to go have my snack and do my laundry. It keeps me humble. So until next week, same place, different time. You take care and take care this week and yeah. I'm thankful. Just take stock and give thanks for the good things that you do see and notice in your life, and then you'll get more of that. Okay? Take care. Bye-bye.